Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Yevamot daf Mem, we are going to begin on the very last line on Lamed Testament Beis. So we were learning that when it comes to Yibum, there's a question, is it better to do Yibum or Chalitza? And according to Abishol, he says that he's very concerned that a person may end up doing Yibum with Shem Noi for not the right reasons, and therefore that's almost an element of being poigeh be'ereva, and because of that, he says better do chalitza. However, according to the Chachamim, it says it's just doing the mitzvah. It's okay. It doesn't always have to be l'shem mitzvah. You can still do yibum. So on this, the Gemara says ema reisha. The pasuk says matzus te'achel b'makom kadosh. Says Rashi. So this is an extra pasuk, as it says in the beginning, b'hanoseres min hamincha, the leftover of the flour offering you're supposed to eat. So the question is, why does it say that the leftover is supposed to be eaten in this holy place as matzah? It's a mitzvah. This is what you're supposed to do. Says the Gemara continuing on Mem Amud Aleph, Shabbat before you were maktishit as a flour offering, haisala b'chal heter, that it was completely mutter. You can do whatever you want because it's not kaidish. And then nesra, you made it aser by being maktishit. And then v'chaz v'hutra, and then when you finally had the kaimitz of the kamitza done on the flour offering, the shirayim became mutter to be eaten again. So yachal taksel heter rishon. So you would think that means it goes back to its original heter. Talmud Lomer matzos teachel b'makom kadosh mitzvah. So l'chayra, that means that it's a mitzvah to eat it now. It's not like it's a choice. But now you're supposed to eat the shirah. Now, Bishlam or Rava, Yomi Hamani Rabbanan, he said this is like the sheet of the Rabbanan who says when it comes to Yibum, that's still a mitzvah. So hachi kamer is what it means. So matzos tiyacha b'makom kadosh. So you're supposed to eat them in this makom kadosh mitzvah. Shabbatchila haisala b'chal heter. What was the heter originally before it became hektish? So ratza oichel, ratza ein ochel. You don't have to eat it. You can just say, you know what? No, thank you. Nesra, you made it into a carbon, and then chaz v'hutra, and then it now becomes mutter after the kamitza. So the shiraim are allowed to be eaten by the kohen. So yachal taksel hater l'rishain, ratza ochel, ratza ein ochel. So maybe you could eat it, or you don't have to eat it. What do you mean? Ratza ein ochel v'ksev v'achel oisam asher kupar behem malab asher kohanim oichlin v'val mischaprin. There's a chiyuv, they have to eat it. What do you mean if they want to eat it? Maybe it means the one who did the avoda could eat it, or some other kohen could do it. That's a mitzvah on the person who actually brought the carbon to eat the shirayim. El Rabbi Yitzchak Mar Abdimi Yomer. Abishol, he said that's according to the sheet of Abishol that again the only time Yibum should be done of its mamish limitzvah. So hacham my tree gavni ika. How do we find two cases here? Says Rashi. The kamamayit tana yochel taksel heter rishain. Talmud medolo. That it doesn't go revert to its original status. So al lekel amemor taksel heter rishon ratzal l'shem mitzvah achla ratzal shol l'shem mitzvah achla. You can't say, oh, you don't have to eat l'shem mitzvah. Talmud medolo. The ha kol kama de boy lechla the hasam hu ki boil shol l'shem mitzvah pag be'erva. V'achal mai ka'avid. Yal karchach betray gavni boil ukme dumi dereisha. So Masha'in Kain, when it comes to the situation of the case of the Yevamot, in which you're mamish poigeh, but ereva, if you do it incorrectly, here you're still eating the leftovers of the mincha. It doesn't have to be eaten la mitzvah. So it's not the same thing as a bishul shem mitzvah. So the chitema ratzal tiyava inachla ratzal chil gasoichla. Maybe it's come to tell you the havamin is you can eat it hungry or even full. So chil gasmi shem achila. What do you mean? Why would you even have a havamin? You should be able to eat it that way. You don't violate l'su'una if you're already completely full and you decide to stuff your face with no desire to eat. which is called Nachila Gasa. So you're not Yotze, or in that case, you're not Chayiv on Yom Kippur. So Achila Gasa, in order to have a Havamina, that maybe that would work. El Ratza, what's the Ratza? Ratza Matzah, Ratza Chametz. Maybe you would think you could eat it as chametz. It doesn't have to be matzah. What do you mean? It says beferish that it should not be chametz. Even the shirayim are not allowed to be as chametz. You would think that when it comes to the mincha offering, the shirayim could be eaten regularly as matzah or cholot. What's cholot? Rashi says beroitzchim, that you scalded it in hot water. So haychol hechadam im matzahi hamatzi below matzahi matzosam rachmana. What's the problem of cholot? Because after all, if it's matzah, it's good. If it's not, it's not. So it is matzah. So why can't you do cholot? And that's what the pasuk here is telling you, to say that it does not work when it comes to the mincha. So what does it mean that it's considered to be like matzah? We just said for the mincha you can't do cholot. Even though it was scalded in hot water initially, but tanur, if you go and bake it afterwards in an oven, oini krinin bay. So this answers a couple of questions. Question 8. And the answer is cholot. If it's something which is scalded, that still applies, that you can actually be yotzei de chavaso of eating matzah, because it's still called lechem oni if you bake in the oven afterwards. TA 23. Matzah is toichel b'makom kodesh mitzvah. So ma'yalfin and mahacha haksiv hanasaris min minchi oichelu. Where do you know? So either it's coming to tell you the mitzvah kohen ha'oived v'lalacher. It's a mitzvah for the kohen who did the avodah to eat it, not someone else, or it's the mitzvah to eat it as matzah v'locholot and not scolded. Okay. Right. Now let's see the next Mishnah. So a person did chalitza, didn't do yibum, he did chalitza. So because he kind of took this way out, he has no greater inheritance than any of his other brothers. He's not yarish anything from his deceased brother. After all, if let's say the father's still alive, but the son died, which is again their brother, one of their brothers died, childless, so all of his inheritance goes to the father. It does not go to the brothers. First it goes, of course, to the children, but since he has no children, because he died childless, it goes to the father. If there's no father, then it goes to the siblings. Hakainis is yevimtai, and if a person actually ends up doing yibum, then the opposite. Not only does he marry this woman, does yibum with a woman, but he also inherits the wealth of his brother. Doesn't make any difference. Even if he does yibum, if his father's alive, the father gets the money. So pshita, for the Gemara, it seems pretty obviously that he at least should get something. He like his brothers, he shouldn't lose out. So you would actually think chalitza is like yibum. But nishku kul nichse, you would actually maybe think he should get everything. You really should say that he's just like all the other brothers. It's almost mashma the opposite direction. The Havdamin is the opposite way. You would think that we actually maybe kanas him, because why did he end up losing out that he can't do yibum? And not only is he not able to do yibum, but by him doing chalitza, he passes all of his brothers from doing yibum also. Doesn't make any difference. The din is he gets the same as the other brothers. We don't say that he loses out by doing chalitza. Imish shamav. So if there is a father, so the father gets it. Why? The father comes first. Hakoinis is Yevimtoi, but if he does Yibum, so again, it's a machlokas whether the Yavam gets it or the father. So my time, why would you say that the Yavam gets? Because the pasuk says, Yokim al Shem Achiv, Rachamani B'Hari Kam. So he decided to get up and do this. So therefore, because of that, he is able to get the Yerusha. Yehuda Aimer Chul. Halacha Yehuda. Halacha is actually Yehuda that even if the man does Yibum, but if they have their father still alive, he's Yerush. Why time does Rabbi Yehuda say that the father gets? As we said before, the dinim of Yibum is like a bechor. As we said before, it means he's not noitel roik of a muchsik. So over here is a second shot. That how is he like a bechor? Ma bechor ein lo b'chaya av. Avhai nami ein lo b'chaya av. The reality is that even though bechor gets pishnayim, that's only after the father dies. But while the father's alive, he doesn't get. So too over here, it's only when the father's not around. If in fact we're comparing it to the father, ma bechor no to mishnayim la'achar misasa'av. The firstborn gets a double portion after the father dies. So avhai no to mishnayim la'achar misasa'av. Maybe in this case, this guy should also get double. No, midi yokom al shem aviv ksiv, yokom al shem achiv ksiv, v'lo al shem aviv. So it's not totally on him getting anything, lanachla, based on his father's death. It's only totally on the brother. So ema heichadaleka av. Maybe in this situation there's no father, delishkol nachla, to take the nachla from the other brother to skayim mitzvahs yibum. That's when you should do yibum. However, heicha deika av. If you have a situation where there is a father, there is no father. So there's no father, then you could do yibum. Heicha deika av. If there's a father, deloy shakol nachla, lo teskayim mitzvahs yibum. So Gemara says, "Midi yibum anachla tal rachmana," is being able to do or inherit the reason why yibum works. Yevumi miyame, he does yibum. V'ika nachla shkoli. If there's money, he takes. V'lo shakel. In other words, if let's say the man who died, the brother who died, he died penniless. Who would have a halamim to think that means you can't do yibum? Of course, you still should do yibum. Okay, if he has money, so then you're Yerush. Yosef Rav Chanina Kra Kamei Rav Yana. Yosef, who's sitting with Karma Halach Rabbi Yehuda. I'm like, put Korech Lebrag. Go and say this outside, because ain't Halach Rabbi Yehuda. Halach is not like Rabbi Yehuda. The din is not that the father gets. So Tani Tana Kamei Rav Nachman ain't Halach Rabbi Yehuda. And the Halach is not like him. Amalei El Kaman Kurabanan. So Pshinti Yachav Halach Rabim. It's not really much a big chiddush to say that because, of course, when you have Rabbi Yehuda who's a yachid going against the Rabbanan, you would logically say that. So therefore, ismei, maybe we should delete this brisa. Amalei lo. At halacha asnyoch. You taught it like a yachid. Umukshehu di akshiloch. And you asked this question. The avches turned it around. Umay di avches shaper avches. And that which you turned around, it makes sense what you turned around. It says Rashi, so again, maybe what you should do, you should switch the shitas around. Heichi shavik rabban v'avik Rabbi Yehuda, the avchasla v'shaper avad the achbasla. So it's possible that again the shitas were switched around, and that's the reason for this. Okay, let's look at question 9. Maha Mokr Lahad Rabbi Yehuda the Av Kaidim Yavam Nechse Ames. So because it's V'hay Bechor. So this person who does the Yibum is like a Bechor. And just like a Bechor, Ein Lo B'chaya Av, Avhai Nami Ein Lo B'chaya Av. He doesn't get anything in the lifespan of the father. Okay, let's see one more Mishnah. So the Mishnah says as follows. Hachayilitz Li'avimtai. So again, a person did Chalitza. Who asur b'krovav he asur b'krovav. That, assuming it's a real chalitza, as we saw this in a previous Mishnah, that will now asur him and will asur her from the marrying into each other's relatives, because this is a shtickle element of chasnos, if you will. They separated, but it's enough to aser each other. Continuing on Mem Mebez, who aser be'ima, he's aser also now to marry her mom, uve'im ima, or grandmother, uve'im aviha, uvavita, the father's mother and the daughter, uvas bita, uvas bina, your daughter, her daughter's daughter, or her son's daughter. Uvachosa, also, once you do chalitza, you can no longer marry her sister, zman kayemes, as long as she's still alive. Va'achin mutarin, however, the other brothers are allowed. Stop here for a second, look at Rashi. Who aser kol hana harayis deraisinin who beishto because reninu rabbanan b'chalutzasai. So all these dinim are really when it comes to once you're married or hentan yibum. So chalitza is like a din midrabanan where geyser they also cannot marry these people. It's Rashi va'avi aviv mishum kalos benai afagav the ishto gemura in asurul avi aviv, even though his wife is not usher to the grandfather. El medivri seifrim befil hachias rabbanan nami b'chalutza. So he aser also. So he asura ba'aviv. So as we said, she's aser to marry this man's father, va'avi aviv and his grandfather, uvivnai and his son, uven benai his son's son, va'achiv and the brothers, uven achiv and the brothers' children. Now mutter adam b'krayvet saras chalutzasai. However, a person is allowed in the relatives of the tsar, the co-wife of the one that you did chalitza with, not with the one you did chalitza with, but once you did chalitza, that frees up the tsara. So she's tsaras, she herself you don't marry, but the relative of the tsaras chalutza also is allowed. The asibit tsaras kroivas chalutzasai says Rashi. We don't say that the tsar is just like the other woman that you did chalitza with. No, we don't say that. However, also but tsaras kroivas chalutzasai. Reuven says Rashi chalutz l'leah. Let's say Reuven did chalitza with Leah. For Rachel nasul l'nachri, and Rachel was married to some other guy. V'lo Sarah, and Rachel had another co-wife. Umeisa nachri, and this guy died. So Asur Hatzara Reuven, so we say that this Tzara is not allowed to marry Reuven. However, that's what it means. However, Asur the Tzaras Kroivas Chalutzasai. So the Gemara asks a question. Gazer Shnias B'Chalutza Olai. So we had this question about Shnias Larayas, which is like a grandparent, which is like once removed, which we end up saying, is it a gezerah or gezerah? So be'erava diraisa gazer rabbanan shnias b'chalutza gazer rabbanan shnias. So when it comes to an erva diraisa, maybe the rabbanan were gazer shnias. However, when it comes to chalitza, they're not. So again, the fact that chalitza was done, do we say that you're not only usher to the relatives, but even the shnias larayas? So Tashma, who usher be'ima, uve'im ima, it says beferish, you're usher not only the mother, but also the grandmother. V'yu aim ima lokatani. It doesn't mention your great-grandmother. So it must be because that's shnias haras. No, dilma hainu time with the loitani. The reason why it doesn't mention that is not because you're mutter with the shnias, it's mishum de kaboilu misne seifa. What does it say? But achin mutarin, that the brothers are allowed to marry this woman. Now v'yitan aim ima. So havamina ha'achin mutarin davne be'aim ima. You would think it's only the great-grandmother's mutter to the other brothers. But be'aim ima uve'ima lo. You would think that the other brothers are not allowed to marry her grandmother or mother. And the answer is, that's not true. They are allowed to. Only the one who did chalitza is not allowed to. However, when it comes to the brothers of the one who did chalitza, they're allowed. V'lisne aim ima. So why doesn't it mention the mother and the grandmother? V'lisne ha'achin mutarin b'kulan. And then it could say more explicit. So this way we know, Kashi, you're right. It's a good question why it doesn't say it more clearly
and therefore perhaps that would leave this, we wouldn't have this confusion. So again, the Gemara is still wondering what the din is when it comes to chalitza. Do we ask her shneus arayos? So Tashma, he asura ba'aviv. So she, the one who you did chalitza to or with, so she can no longer marry his father, ba'avi aviv, the grandfather. Katani miyavi aviv. Milo mishum chayletz dahavila mishum chayletz. The one who did chalitza dahavila kalas beno. Now, what's the problem? Now, this is your daughter-in-law, your son's daughter-in-law. So, even though this seemingly was only the Rabbanan, lo mishum misna. This is referring to the first husband, the Havilah kalas benoi. That is the situation of kalas benoi. Tashma ben benoi, that she's also usher to the grandchild. Maila mishum chayletz, the Havilah Eishes Avi Aviv. Again, so it shows that she's usher to the shniyos. Lo mishum misna is talking about because of her relation to her first husband. V'avila Eishes Achi Avi Aviv. So it's not because of what the second man did. Chalitza is because of her prior relationship of being married to the first man that died. Ha meimar machshir be'Eishes Achi Avi Aviv. But a meimar machshir this person. So a meimar mukiluk bar bara d'tzaba. So he says that a maimor established it like bar bara d'tzaba. What is that? It says Rashi lahai ben beno. When it says grandchildren the masnisin asaba vihin shalmes. It's referring to the grandfather's father of the mace. B'chayletz yihachi hainu achiv uven achiv. So Tana Achiv Mina Av, Gatani Achiv Mina Aim. So even though it seems like it's the same thing, but one's talking about brothers from the father's side, and one's from brothers on the mother's side. Tashma. The Tani Rav Chia Arba Midivri Torah. There's actually 4 which are arise from the Torah, but Arba Midivri Sefer. And this is going to be answer question number 10. Eluhain Arba Kraivav Shachayletz. What are the 4 relatives of the one who did Chalitza? Hasurin al Hachalutza Midaraisa. That she's mamish usher to midaraisa. Question 10. So one is Av, his father, Uben Achiv, and his brother's son. Uben Achiv Midivri Torah. Let me say this again. So what are the 4? Arba Midivri Torah. From Av, the father. Ubenai, the son, his son. Achiv, his brother. Uben Achiv, and his sons, and his brother's son. That's all Midivri Torah. Avi Aviv, Avi Imo, Ben Beno, Ben Bito, Min Midivri Sefer. Katani Miya, Avi Aviv. It mentions the case of Avi Aviv is one of the cases which is Midivri Sefer. So Maila Mishum Chayletz. The whole issue that she can no longer marry the grandfather is because of the one who did chalitza. So therefore we see again, it's a raya that chalitza creates this element of iser shnios, lo mishum misna, that she was married to this guy, to have a look kalas benoi. Tashma, avi imo, so maila mishum chayletz, because of chalitza is what aser. Dahavila kalas pita, lo mishum misna, because she was married to the first guy, dahavila kalas pita. Tashma, uven benoi, by the grandson, maila mishum chayletz, dahavila eshes avi aviv, lo mishum misna, dahavila eshes achi aviv, avi aviv. So again, we keep going back to the same answer. It's not because that he did chalitz, that chalitza was done is what asers, but it's because of her prior relationship to her first husband. Val hameimor machshav eshes achi avi aviv, no meimor moikim lo mishum chalitz, uveksavar gazer shnius b'chalutza. And according to him, you're right. According to him, we are geyser shnius when it comes to chalitza. So you're right. According to him, ataka is a raya. But the question is, do we hold like this, and how about everyone else? Tashma, uven bitoy, your daughter's son, maila mishum chayletz, the havila eshes avi imo, lo mishum misna, the havila eshes achi avi imo. I bahagabi shniyais the ereva lo gazra, but we're not guys over there. Ela mishum chaylet shma mina gazer shnias b'chalutza shma mina. So in fact, we do make this gezerah, and that's how we're establishing it. The gezerah of shnias arais is not just by yibum, but it's also by chalitza. Mutter adam. So on this, the Mishnah said that a person is allowed b'kroivas tsaras chalutzasai, to, in the relatives of the co-wives, tsaras chalutzaso, the co-wife of the one he did chalitza with. Okay, v'aser b'tsaras kroivas chalutzasai, says the Gemara. So Amar Rav Toivi bar Kisna, Amar Shmuel, Haboal tsaras chalutza, if a person has relations with the Saras Chalutza, which means your co-wife Tsara, the woman that you did Chalitza with, her the Tsara, Havlad Mamzer. So my time, but Misur Kaima, because Misur Kaima, says Rashi, Chalutzihi de Kaima Shlo Yivne. Once you have already established by doing Chalitza that you're not building up this brother's family, V'sulo, therefore you're not allowed to take and marry. Avot Sarasa, when it comes to the co-wife, Kaimo leha be'isr eshes ach bekaris v'avlad mamzer. The co-wife, the isser of eshes ach, she's still your brother's wife. That's an isser of karis. So at least what you've done is you've removed the whole notion of lo yivna, and therefore at least you did something. You did chalitza. But the problem is if now you take the other woman, so then you've actually violated Isser of Eshes Ach, which the child will be considered a mamzer. So my time would be Sur Kaima. Rabbi Yosef, Afanam Namatinina, Mutter Adam Mikrovet Saras Chalutzasa, Iyam Bishlam Sara Avroi, Mishum Hachi Mutter Bachaisa. That's the reason why you can marry her sister. El Iyam Sar Bachalutza Kachalutza Damya. The tsar has the same din as the woman you did chalitza with, am I mutter? So then why would you be allowed to marry her relatives? So it says, Beferish, that there's no din kares. So you're telling me this whole din is a deraisa to begin with. So it's all midrabanan anyway. So Maishna, says Rashi. Maishna Reisha, that Kroivas Saras Chalutzas to the Sharia, and why in the same but Saras Kroivas Chalutzaso. Shishtain Nachri, I see, they're both like not related, but Saras and the Sus and Nachri Vikatani Aser. So what's the difference? As we continue to Mem Aleph and Aleph, Hach de Azla Bahadya de Beidin or Beidina. Those that went to the Beis Din, Gazdu the Rabbana are geyser, says Rashi, Kishalachai letzes. Once you did chalitza to Leah, Ma'ilicha chayse imal Beis Din. So the sister goes with her to Beis Din. The Kol Yamalu Yadai Haiminaihu Yevimtai. No one knows which one was the Yevamot, these two women, the two sisters. Vik the Savar, some may think the Rachel Chalutz, that actually did Chalitza with Rachel. V'chin Natzat Saras Rachel. So therefore, if you would, let's say, marry the co-wife of Rachel, again, you end up doing Chalitza to Leah, but the problem is that Leah's sister, Rachel, maybe people thought maybe that was the one that you did Yibum with, or Chalitza with. So the Hainu Tsaras Korevas Chalutzaso, Amrit Tsaras Chalutzasas Natziv. People will think, oh my goodness, this is surprising. You can actually marry the relative of the one who the tsara of the one you did chalitza with, but of course you didn't. You really married the sister of the chalutzas of the one you did the tsara of the sister that you didn't do chalitza with. I understand you can't marry the tsara of the chalutz, the one you did chalitza with, but the sibling who you didn't do chalitza with, her tzara you should be able to. But because of this confusion, dinu savri sharachal v'tzarasa nashi achiv havi sharichol tzarachal. So hanoch hach de ozul b'hadola beidina gazer rabbanan. Those that go to the basin were geyser, because it's possible people will think, oh, you didn't do. Who's the one that you did chalitza with? You did chalitza with Leah, but maybe it was really Rachel. And all of a sudden you see that this guy's marrying Rachel's tzara. So you think that, wow, that's unbelievable. When it comes to things that they don't go to the base, then they're not guys. It says Rashi, when a Yevamot does chalitza, in tzaras alechas ima. The tzara doesn't go with her. The sister will, but not the tzara. Hilkach ki notzev achos Sarah. So therefore, when you end up marrying the sister of the tzara, lo amrin and achos chulutzasu notzev. So it's like this. It's also to take the woman you did chalitza with, her sister's tzara, because the sisters are probably both going to go to the Beis Din, and there's going to be confusion which one was actually the one you did chalitza with. However, what is allowed is the sister of the sister of the tzara. You can't marry the tzara of the one you did chalitza with, but the tzara's sister is allowed. And the reason is because everyone's going to know between this woman and the tzara, because the tzara is not going to accompany her. So because she's not going to accompany her, so therefore everyone's going to know she didn't do chalitza. You didn't do chalitza with that tzara. And therefore that's the reason why you're allowed to be with her relative. Okay, we'll stop here. Question 11. Ma svara she'asu chachamim saras achais chalutza, that you cannot marry the sister, the chalutza's sister's tzara, right? The chalutza's sister's the chalutza's tzara's sister. Let me say that again. Ve'ilu achos saras chalutza hatiru. So, but on the other hand, you could take the chalutza's tzara's sister. Oh, but you can't take the chalutza's sister's tzara, because you can be confusion because both of the sisters are going to come to the Beis Din, and therefore you're going to maybe think that, oh, it was the other sister that you did chalitza with. So the chalutza's sister's tzara is aser, because they'll both go to the Beis Din, both sisters, and there'll be confusion which sister you did chalitza with. However, the chalutza's tzara sister is mutter, because the tzara is not going to go together with the chalutz. See this. Ki chalutza moilicha chaysima. The sisters are going to come together. V'yesh shiyitu loimer sha'achais chalutza. That you really did chalitza. They'll think you really did chalitza with the other sister. And they're going to think, oh my goodness, you married the co-wife of the chalutz, which is certainly not allowed. Well, you didn't really do that. You didn't do chalitza with this woman, but because they both come to Beis Din, they're going to get confused. Okay, that was question 11. Let's see if there's any other questions here. TA 24. Hasfekos choltzos lomas yevamos. Okay, didn't do that. Question TB 25. Masvara she'asu chachamim tzaras achos chalutza ve'ilu achos tzaras hachalutza hetir afmi shekorei vasin shavos. Really, it's a similar problem, and this is what we just said. This is TB 25. Let's see if he writes it any differently over here. Ki hachalutza malicha chaysima. The sisters are going to come together. V'yish yitaloimer she'achayis hachalutza. You actually did chalitza with the other sister. It'll end up looking like you actually did chalitza, that you end up marrying the one you did the chalitza, her relative, right? V'im kein yomer tsaras chalutzasu natzav. Because they're not going to come to Beis Din together.